It took less than half a second for Google to come up with almost 3 million hits for paraphrasing tool. Most of them, however, focused on paraphrasing research in an essay or speech. Even the Oxford Dictionary focuses on the referencing of literary works. But we're focusing on the language tip of paraphrasing in an interpersonal communication setting. While you are still trying to express someone's meanings in your own words, the last part of Oxford's definition is the most applicable to us, especially to achieve greater clarity. This video is focusing on paraphrasing as a language tip, specifically the basics of what paraphrasing is and why you might use it, the two main types of paraphrasing, and some considerations on when to paraphrase and when not to. Now, if you're interested in some paraphrasing techniques, like the words you might use to paraphrase, I've created a second video to help with that. But for now, let's start with what paraphrasing is and why you might use it. It helps if you know that one of the meanings of the prefix para is closely related or closely resembling. So paraphrasing would mean closely related to a phrase or comment. Okay, in less Greek terms, a paraphrase is a statement that rewords the listener's interpretation of a message, meaning what you are rewording is closely related to or resembling the original message, but it's not identical. The primary reason for paraphrasing what another person has said is clarity. You want to make sure you really understand what someone is communicating. This could involve validating your impression or requesting more information. But a secondary reason may be that you are letting the other person know that they are being heard, and that by itself can be powerful. It's important to recognize several things. First, a lot of meaning comes from what is not said. What comes out of someone's mouth may only be a portion of what is going on in their head. Second, consider that many words could have multiple meanings. There's a Frank and Ernest comic by Bob Thaves. I can't show it to you as that would violate copyright. With the evil queen from the Snow White fairy tale being asked by her magic mirror to clarify, do you mean fair like pretty or fair like even-handed? And if your goal is clarification or understanding, it's incompatible with judging and analyzing. These qualities, judgment and analysis, are often communicated non-verbally. For example, if you say, "It sounds like work is getting difficult right now," but in a sarcastic or disdainful tone, you'll likely end up in an argument rather than gaining understanding of your communication partner's meaning. Very quickly, let me add one thing that paraphrasing is not. It's not parroting. Parroting is repeating back to your partner almost exactly what they said, not putting it into your own words, but using their words. For example, your friend begs off going to dinner with you with, "I'd like to go, but I can't afford it." If you respond with, "You'd like to go, but you can't afford it," you are parroting. You are using their words and not clarifying anything, even if you add some words to it. So what I'm hearing you say is, while you'd like to go, you can't afford it, you are still parroting. If instead you say something like, "If we could find a way to pay for your dinner, would you be willing to come?" You might get a, "That would be great," meaning that you correctly understood your friend's message. But you might get an answer like, "No, I can't afford to take time away from my work right now." This is a good time to talk about the two main types of paraphrasing: paraphrasing content and paraphrasing feelings. Think about content as factual information and feelings as personal information. When you are paraphrasing the content, you are checking your understanding of the denotative meaning of the message, the words themselves. That allows the person to clarify, revise, or verify the content of their message, just as we did in the previous example. Sometimes when we hear our own words reflected back, that by itself helps us get a different understanding of the situation we're discussing. It could be as simple as, "So we meet this Tuesday the 30th, right? Or is it next Tuesday the 7th?" But oftentimes we need to make sure we understand how a person is feeling, the emotions or meanings behind the words. "Things were busy at work today" could be paraphrased as, "Does that mean you're too tired to go to dinner tonight?" Or, "It sounds like you are frustrated right now." So, while paraphrasing content helps you understand your partner's ideas more clearly, when you paraphrase feelings, you are communicating your understanding of the emotional meaning behind the message. No surprise that it's harder to paraphrase feelings than content. You've probably figured out by now that a key part of paraphrasing is active listening. You need to give your full attention to not only what they say, but how they say it. Considering your communication partner's nonverbal messages may be just as important, if not more, than the words they are using. One last point. Paraphrasing is not always appropriate, so consider when to paraphrase. Look at the issue. Is it complex or important enough to warrant a paraphrase? I wonder when dinner will be ready probably doesn't require a paraphrase. Realize that paraphrasing takes time, so if you're in a hurry, paraphrasing might not be appropriate. Evaluate your level of concern for the issue and potentially the other person. When paraphrasing, you must really be sincere. Related, ask yourself if you're willing to focus on your partner's message without injecting your own judgments, verbally or nonverbally. And finally, could you perhaps be overusing paraphrasing? Not only does not everything need to be paraphrased, but if you do not normally paraphrase, your partner may get frustrated if you start paraphrasing everything. Now that you understand the basics of what paraphrasing is and what it isn't, as well as the main types of paraphrasing and considerations relating to when to use it, it's time to learn some of the techniques. But to paraphrase what I said earlier in this video, there is another video focusing on paraphrasing techniques. I hope you find the content in both videos, this one and the paraphrasing technique ones, helpful for you and your relationships.